Well, looky here, it's more FE12, Hard 3 ZPG, Chapter 13. We've picked up some new units over the last few chapters from a game nobody played called Fire Emblem Arcanea Saga. Maris and Dice brought us 11 Sword and Devil Axe, but otherwise aren't worth noticing. Robert is a pre-promote with worse bases than promoted Ogma, but Belf and Leiden have excellent stats, and I'm going to promote them both immediately. I don't feel very good about this, because I don't want to use stupid, made-up filler characters from Arcanea Saga. I want to use the characters that are central to the story, but I guess this is what we signed up for. Now, Chapter 12 was pretty terrifying, and Chapter 14 looks terrifying, but this one is a bit more relaxed. There's still a lot going on each turn, but it's sort of at my own pace. There's a lot more room to move around, there's no reinforcements, and there's some side objectives that are going to slow down the chapter no matter what. Minerva ate a second energy drop, which might be a capital offense in the FE12 community, as Pala is generally supposed to be the hungry one, but Minerva's ability to one-shot weak enemies with the Hot Claire is just too valuable for me. So we already have the Lin sword, but now I'm forging the Eliwood sword as well with +3 might instead of +2, named after everybody's favorite murderer, and I don't know how I forgot about that last time, but anyway. Now this chapter is sort of a chance to catch your breath between chapters 12 and 14, and while there's still a lot going on each turn, there's a lot more room to move around and no reinforcements, so you can kind of play at your own pace, and there's some side objectives that'll force you to slow down anyway. Specifically, Marth needs to recruit a former ballistician from Shadow Dragon in the northwest, and there are 3 treasure chests in the eastern half of the map. Now, if you're playing for pure speed, you could find a way to move your army west on turn 1, but I'm not willing to give up any of the treasure, so I decided to swing right and then back to the left after a couple turns. Sita gets a crit here for no reason, but I'm going to pretend she didn't and kill this thief with the Silver Lance as I had planned, because that's what I do. Leiden shows us what he's made of here. This is definitely overkill with the new Eliwood sword, but my thinking is that it's going to be better to have as many forged Wormslayers deployed as I can in Chapter 14 and later in the game. So even though Lin would 2-hit kill these Ice Dragons, I want to save it. So Belf is going to come in now with the Hector and put this Barbarian to rest. So Belf and Leiden are already showing the usefulness here. And I actually don't need the Recover Staff for this chapter, because like I was saying, it's a lot lower stress than Chapter 12. So I'm letting Wendell work on his staff rank, and he's going to contribute to some Wyvern kills too. And now Minerva's going to get danced to go Goomba Stomp this Dark Mage with the Hot Glare. This is the only unit that I needed his stats to be rolled correctly, just to make sure this one shot goes off. Belf is able to draw aggro instead of Sita because he gets doubled while Sita does not. And so her speed continues to actually have value. And it's actually not the last time we'll see her speed having value, because I wanted that Barbarian to be closer to my forces. So it seems like there's a lot of enemies rushing towards us, but the Wyverns are far enough away that you can just deal with them completely separately from the rest of these. So it's not as stressful as it looks. One useful technique, of course, is to let enemy thieves loot chests and then kill the thieves to get the loot. But if we went and attacked the thief on the chest tile right now, we would be in range of the Wyverns coming down, so that was a no-go. Minerva needs to get the Strength Shards over to George, but even without them, she doesn't need the Hot Claire to set up a kill on this Barbarian. The Devil Axe is enough, so I'm expecting to get a lot more Devil Axe use in this run. I also have a second Devil Axe that Pala can use. Now this is sort of what I meant by slower paced. There's just no way to push into the pack of enemies to our west or push north into the Wyverns. So we're just setting up George for a big counter on enemy phase with the Parthia. And even with this sort of slowdown, we're not in danger of either side of incoming Wyverns, which is surprisingly merciful design from Intelligent on this one. Now, these Dark Mages can roll 17 speed, although only one on the map did. So that's why Sita is helping out instead of, say, Sirius, who would have needed the Scorpio Shard to not get doubled by these guys. Although Sita does need the Virgo Shard, but that's a lot less important to survive. In hindsight, I really should have had Pala using a Devil Axe instead of the Silver Lance, because the Devil Axe can't even be sold for money. George puts down some nice chip damage on this Barbarian, and Belf grabs those Strength Shards to slay a dragon. No troubles there at all. Unsurprisingly, Etzel and Wendell are going to team up to take down these Wyverns for us with Excalibur, which is still by far the best way of dealing with them. even on 0% growths on Lunatic. I thought I might need the Devil Shard here on Leiden. I wasn't totally sure how the stats might roll, but I didn't. The Steel Sword was enough, so that's nice. Minerva is able to take out this Barbarian without even using the Hot Glare again. Although if I would have used the Hot Glare if he rolled higher stats. But that was just luck of the draw. I wasn't relying on that. Belf is going to put in even more work for us. After getting danced. And Marth is now able to sneak past the incoming Wyverns along the bottom here. Marth does need to be moving his max range to recruit back in the minimum number of turns. Like, if he had been 2 tiles back behind the Wyvern range, he wouldn't have made it in time. So, Julian finally loots the Dragon Pike for us. Our mages are going to make their way to rejoin the others. Feena's going to help Etzel along here. Any of my Draco Knights would get doubled by the massive 22 speed on this last Wyvern. So, unfortunately, I had to one-shot it with the Parthia. That's life. George looks super dead in this position, especially since the enemy Barbarian has a Tomahawk and 18 speed. But we give the Strength Shards all to Minerva, and she kills 2 birds with 1 stone here. One-shotting that Dark Mage and blocking off George from danger. The red tile he's on is just because of the Thief, and he's not going to attack anybody. The second Dark Mage, though, is definitely going to target Minerva, and so to keep her alive, to keep her from getting ganged up on, we're going to offer up Pala as bait with lower defense, because the Barbarian moves first, and so he'll attack Pala for us. Without any available healers, Leiden had to use the Vulnerary, and he's actually in range of the Tomahawk Barbarian as well, but due to what I'm guessing is Weapon Triangle, the Barbarian still preferred to attack the tankier Pala, which I needed. So this was definitely the hardest turn to route. A lot of key units are at low HP, and our healers can't cross the river or contribute to the kills. Pala's been holding the Scorpio Shard all chapter for this turn because Belf never had room for it, and his critical weakness of only 13 speed needs to be addressed, or that Barbarian would have killed him by doubling. Pala does not get doubled by any of these enemies, though. She heads off with barely enough HP, thanks to Wendell, to chunk that dragon for us. We need some more help with this Barbarian, and George would also get doubled by his 18 speed, but we grab the Scorpio Shard, and a heal from Etzel to keep him safe. Again, I didn't want to use the Parthia, although I would have needed a Strength Shard to kill, and that would have been awful. Minerva drops her 3rd Dark Mage of the chapter with the Hot Glare. Beautiful. And Leiden takes down this dragon. He drops to 1 HP. I've never seen these dragons with anything but 36 attack, so that Vulnerary that he used and the 2 Defense Shards were enough to consistently make this all work, at least as far as I understand it. Now, I love how this turn looks right now. Everybody's on the brink of death. Everyone used their full capacity, just barely scraping by. And I actually got to show it all for once instead of, without any random crits making it look easier. This Thief is absolutely not going to get away. I need that Wormslayer, but we can take our time with him because he's not going to attack anybody. The heat is still on, though. Now that Marth has recruited Beck, he's going to need to head into range of that Ice Dragon to his right on the next turn so that Marth can reunite with our forces. That means we need to pull that dragon this turn to make room for Marth, and it's a bit of a scramble just to find someone healthy enough to do it. The second problem is that Feena can't keep dancing the healers because she needs to head off to meet up with Marth for a siege setup, and she has no turns to spare. The result is somewhat sloppy looking. Leiden is in position to get healed next turn. George is getting double healed to pull a different dragon next turn, and then we're getting a Vulnerary and Scorpio Shard on Belf because he would get doubled by the Ice Dragon without Scorpio, and he needs the extra health from the Vulnerary just to survive. I wish I had redone this turn, because I was still kind of thinking things through, and it ends up looking a little slow. I should have just re-recorded this turn, so sorry about that. And you'll see why getting the Taurus Shard in line was important in a second. Again, this Thief isn't an issue. He wants to escape northwest, so thankfully he runs across the land instead of like running north through the river up into the death. And so I'm just giving him a hard time with my unit placement, but we'll get him. He's not a problem. I had no intention of using this save tile, but that enemy dragon is going to kill Belf with a 6% crit, which I guess is payback for what I did with the dragon pikes in Chapter 12. So I had to save and reset to change the RNG. And yeah, Belf is able to survive thanks to the Vulnerary and Scorpio Shard and fresh RNG, allowing Marth to begin his approach. Leiden needs to get healed up, but again, the healers can't walk on water, and Fina can't stick around to dance Etzel. So instead, Leiden's going to have to trade off a Vulnerary from someone. And it's also worth noting that neither Etzel nor Wendell can use Physic right now. They both still have D rank and staves as sages. And I needed Wendell as a sage to kill that Wyvern earlier. If he were a bishop, he had C rank stabs, but I needed him as a sage. So this is why I needed the Taurus Shard, or I'm putting this Taurus Shard on him again here. It was kind of sloppy trading. I didn't need to do it last turn. But anyway. You'll see why. Belf still has one more dragon to fight, so he heads back to our Rivers of Life healing station here. George is going to pull this dragon for us, but instead of chipping with Parthia, like I've done in the past, I'm just going to take his weapons and kill this dragon with 2 dragon pike hits. Thankfully, the ice dragons all have 17 speed, which is lower than the 18 of the fire dragons in Chapter 12, and that small difference allows George to avoid being doubled without the Scorpio Shard, and that made this chapter a lot easier. None of my Draco Knights are remotely capable of fighting this thief with his massive 22 speed, but Leiden can safely chip him down thanks to the healing and Vulnerary, and only then because of the extra point of defense from the Taurus Shard on the attacks against the dragon and the thief. Of course, in addition to the Cancer and Pisces that he just had all chapter. Minerva comfortably picks up our 3rd Wormslayer, which I haven't thought of a name for yet, and our weary Draco Knights can get patched up at the Rivers of Life healing station for some more staff rank on these losers. This 2 Dragon Pike kill setup on dragons, I think is going to keep coming back. I just don't see how a huge Dragon Pike Forge is really feasible for one-shotting these dragons in this run. So it's going to be 2 Dragon Pikes or doubling with a Swordmaster, I think. Now this turn right here is why Martha and Fina have had such strict movement. I need them both to cross the water on this turn, which costs 5 movement. So Martha's just barely able to make it across. Fina barely makes it across and gets a dance off on him. And Martha needs to move a little bit more. With the dragon out of the way, Julian can head to the last treasure chest. And Bel's heading in position for the boss kill, since he has the highest skill of my Draco Knights, and thus the highest crit rate. So right here, Marth needs to be on the water already when he gets danced. Oh, we're getting some staff rank first, hold on. Right, so Marth needs to be on the water already, and Fina needs to be able to get to that fort right there. That setup does not work without everything that I did, including that little extra movement after Marth got danced last turn. So that was the setup we were looking for, and it came together pretty perfectly. Beck, I think, is the weirdest portrait in Fire Emblem, in my opinion. He just looks so vacant. I'm not really surprised that he lost his job as a ballistician. You also shouldn't be surprised that I needed to crit the boss, the Dragon Pike. That's just the nature of this run. But the rest of the chapter was excellent. I had a great time working on it, and I love how it turned out. Thanks for watching.